In this week's newsletter, I want to debunk the myth that your future happens by accident. Your future doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design, but only if you have the tools to know how to design the future you want, your best future. But there's things that you do every single week and every single day that lead to designing your future that you do, but you probably don't think of it in those terms. So let's take a mini example. Let's say hopefully you've got something really nice to look forward to next weekend. And if you're like me, I'm a planner. So let's say it's your friend's wedding. So the wedding is outside, you know it's going to be a warm day, you know the friends that are going, so you begin to go through a number of tasks. You get a number of outfits to wear, you call some friends and talk about carpooling or sharing an Uber or a DD or whatever. You think about what you might do afterwards and you plan what you're going to do on that day. And when the day arrives, unless there's an unexpected mishap or your circumstances change, there's a fair chance that you actually end up doing a lot of those things you planned. You might wear the outfit that you plan to wear. Maybe it's one of two, but you selected it beforehand. You share a ride with a mutual friend. You know who you're sitting to at the table and you think in advance of the event, oh, I must ask so-and-so about how their job interview went, for example. Well, you don't think of it necessarily in this way, but when you are sitting at that event that you thought of a week ago, wearing the outfit you thought about, having shared a ride, chatting about a certain topic, you have designed your future as it related to attending that event. And none of those things happened by accident. You just didn't open the wardrobe and wear the first dress that fell out. You didn't get to the door when it was half an hour to arrive at the event and think, oh, I wonder how I'm going to get there. Well, designing your future is very much like that almost mundane activity you've done more than once, preparing for an event, but you do it very, very consciously. Now, I've got a couple of super practical tips to share today, and one is a personal one from me. And a few years ago, when my husband and I first got together and we needed to have a large house because I went from 2 children to 4 children, which was amazing. But we also had to live in a certain location because my oldest boy was doing his final year at high school, and of course we didn't want to move him. So I ended up living in an area that was nice, but it wasn't my first choice. It wasn't an area I was familiar with, and also it was an area I wanted to leave as soon as he had finished school and moved closer to the city. So my husband and I talked about it, and because we've been living all of these principles for a very long time, I got a post office box in the suburb that I wanted to move to in a number of years' time. And I had a lot of friends that lived in the suburb that I wanted to move to, and they would see me in the street or on the high street and say, oh, why have you got your post office box here? And I said, oh, look, it's just really convenient. And at the time, the post office box was in a very expensive area. And at the time when I purchased that post office box, we didn't have the money to live in that area. But still, I knew it was a very small, practical step to creating the future I wanted to enjoy. Now, 4 or 5 years ago, we moved to exactly the same suburb as that post office box. And now I could walk to the post office box to collect my mail. But every time, all those years ago, that I was living somewhere else and I couldn't see how it was going to happen, that I could move to that suburb, I still felt as though part of me lived there already every time I went to collect the mail. So that's one small practical example that you can do, because when you create your future, one of the important things to remember is you're going to be doing something new. Now, your brain doesn't like new things, and there's a chapter in my book, Feeling Forwards, called You Can Ignore Your Brain, because your brain just wants to keep you safe. And if you do the same thing every single day, your brain is really happy, because if you were safe yesterday doing, I don't know, catching the train, having a cheese sandwich for lunch, getting home, getting takeaway and falling asleep in front of the television, your brain thinks it's a great thing to do the next day and the next day and the next day. So the brain doesn't like change. So the other practical tip I have to use when you're creating your future is if you want to do something different and something new, try planning for it in a new place. Now it's a little bit like the post office box example, but this is to do with travel or moving house. So let's say it's a big life change. Let's say you want to take an amazing trip. Let's say it's a bit adventurous. You want to do some mountain climbing or you want to do a retreat. If you're creating your future, it doesn't make sense if you plan that adventurous trip sitting on the same couch you've been eating your takeaway and binge watching Netflix or whatever else. Because you're trying to combine something very unfamiliar and new for your future with a familiar environment for your present. So I always recommend when you're planning your big plans, when you're creating your future, get out of the house, go to somewhere. It doesn't mean spending a lot of money. Go to a cafe that's got great internet, grab a coffee, buy a nice new notebook. I have a new notebook for every book I write and every new project I do and every new product I create. Get a new notebook and plan in that spot. But then don't take your plans home to the couch or the familiar place, because you'll get that voice in the back of your head saying, oh, maybe this isn't such a good idea. Am I really up to this? Perhaps I should be fitter before I climb Machu Picchu or whatever it is that you're excited about. Create your future in a new place so it reinforces that you're going to make a change, you're going to do something new, and it's going to be fabulous. So if you want to create your future, don't do it in the same place that you're doing something in the present. If you want to create your future, you want to make a change, so change everything to do with that event, and then it's far more likely it will unfold far quicker than you could have imagined. Until next time.